Who starts? Is that
Yes, it is my pleasure to introduce our next guest speaker, Dr. Stephen Krashen, who will present the case for free voluntary self-selected reading. Stephen Krashen, Professor Emeritus at the University of Southern California, is an expert in the field of linguistics with over 486 publications in the areas of second language acquisition, bilingual education, and reading. The five main hypotheses of his renowned theory of second language acquisition are studied worldwide by foreign language teachers. These five main hypotheses are acquisition learning hypothesis, monitor hypothesis, natural order hypothesis, input hypothesis, and affective filter hypothesis. His work has been recognized with several prestigious awards and positions worthy of his contributions. Currently, Dr. Krashen advocates for the use of voluntary reading as the most powerful tool in language education and helps educators by sharing much of his research online. It is a pleasure to meet you over here, Dr. Stephen Krashen.
Great pleasure. Thank you. So should I start talking and say wise things?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm going to begin by talking about the advantage of the middle class native speaker who is born into a family with very generous parents. That's me. I did it. I can do this. I'm very literate, etc. But it was the easy way. And maybe less than 1% of people in the world have these advantages. Let me tell you what they are. When I entered school in kindergarten, the teacher realized I was having trouble in school and I was the worst reader in my class. Can you imagine that? Me, Steve Krashen, I was the worst reader in my class. And my father got the cure, and I think did a big favor for all of us, to all of us. He bought me a huge stack of comic books in English. And he said, here are the comic books. You get all you like. If you don't like these, here's more, and I can get you as many as you like. Well, that was the solution. I started reading comic books. I spent several years reading comic books, and I gained and gained and gained. I did absolutely no study. All I did was read about Spider-Man, who is still one of my great heroes, by the way. Okay. After a couple of years of this, I found other things I liked to read, and they were comprehensible. I had very little reading instruction, a little bit of formal instruction, a little bit of phonics, not very much, but I'm sure it was the comic books that made the difference. I jumped into comic books, and I still have not jumped out completely. There's nothing like a brand new comic book, as far as I'm concerned, is the most fun in reading. I think Spider-Man, in fact, is one of the greatest characters in the world of fiction, and I'll be telling you why I think that's so. So I started off reading comics, and gradually I discovered other things. The comic books gave me the competence to read other things, and I started reading other things, other authors. I started reading baseball stories. When I was growing up in Chicago, the only thing that counted was baseball. Your entire social status was how well you played baseball. And all we talked about was the Chicago Cubs. I grew up in Chicago. That's all we talked about. That's all we cared about. We watched all the games, etc. So I bought baseball stories. I bought books by a guy named John R. Tunis. Well, my parents bought them. Tunis, better known as an expert on tennis, but he wrote lots of wonderful baseball stories. And I'll tell you what, I've reread some of these recently, and I still think they're fascinating. They're good. They're wonderful. After I did baseball, which, still is going on, I still did it. I still loved it. There's still compelling reading. I went on and started to read science fiction. I read the work of Robert Heinlein, who wrote wonderful science fiction, and I still read these stories today. And they're just as compelling and wonderful as they were when I read them when I was a middle school and high school student. This was my education, my fundamentals of literacy. Again, I was very lucky and very privileged. How many children grow up in families where parents are willing to buy you all the comic books you want, all the science fiction you want, anything you wanted, and never ask questions? It was only encouraging. This is my goal for everybody, of course. This is what we want. Well, the next thing I want to talk about is what happened in actual reading and what Dr. Benico Mason has done, which I think has given us the key to success for all children, first language and second language. What she does in her program, she teaches, her native language is Japanese, and she deals with students who do English as a second language, which most of our problem is second language learners, of course, second language acquirers, I should say. We wanted them to have texts that were interesting and comprehensible. This is the goal of our programs. And we found them for them. We found them for them in this way. What Dr. Mason did to prepare students to read in English was, first of all, to get them books, encourage them to read books that she thought would be comprehensible and interesting, and she succeeded, no question. They didn't have to know every word. They just simply had to enjoy the story, which is how most normal people read anyway. She kept records of what these students read. She encouraged them to read good books that were known to be respectable literature, etc., and interesting. They read Harry Potter books. They read books by Judy Blume. They read books like The Giver. They read Twilight. Now, it was all the reading of comic books and these easier books that made it possible. She kept this up for about, with her reading thoroughly with 8 subjects for several years. The subjects she dealt with were under her supervision from 4 months to 3 years. During this time, they averaged 260 hours of voluntary pleasure reading. She helped them find books that were interesting to them. During this point, and the astonishing part is coming up, she kept track of the number of TOEIC points they scored. She administered the TOEIC test to them, a well-known standardized test of English, which they took at their convenience. In this period of time, anywhere from 4 months to 3 years, they gained an average of 166 points of TOEIC points. They averaged, and you better sit down when I tell you this, 0.6 points for every hour of pleasure reading they did. That's what did it. That's how they became competent readers. The more reading they did of these recommended novels, they read some simplified novels as well that she gave them just for fun. But when they read these very good books, respectable books, they read 260 hours of these books over 4 years maximum. They gained 0.6 points per hour on the TOEIC examination over several years. This was not torture. This was not study. This was not hard work. The reading was interesting. The conclusion I've come to, there are 2 basic principles, and I'm certainly not the only one to say this. We want reading to be comprehensible, and we want it to be highly interesting. So interesting that you get lost in the book and you forget that there's an outside world. This is what Dr. Mason has succeeded in doing, and she has solved the problem for these groups of people. They are now fluent readers in English as a second language. What they did is they got books that were comprehensible and interesting, and every few months they took an alternate version of the TOEIC and they made steady progress. I think these are sensational and unprecedented results. These results show that with the proper preparation, this can happen. Everyone, first language, second language, poverty, no poverty, etc., can make it. It helped, of course, that they had benevolent, helpful parents who could afford to buy them books, but that's not necessary. We can do this too. I think the answer lies in libraries. Libraries filled with interesting reading that students can pick, put down if they don't like it, try another one, and eventually find enough books that they like. I want to open the floor now to your questions and tell me why this is all unreasonable. Okay, so it's your turn. I pass the microphone on to you.
Yeah, so we're waiting for questions in the chat and in Zoom and in Facebook. So let's wait just a couple of seconds to see who's willing to ask you, Professor. Oh, no, Doctor.
Okay, retired professor, as a matter of fact.
Oh.
It's a good job. Let me tell you.
Mm. Yes, so we have Valdez Reyes Mariel, and then we have Guadalupe Hernandez. So please, Valdez.
Okay.
Earlier, I had a lot of issues with my microphone, so I don't know if you can hear me.
Talk a little louder and slower.
Can you hear me a little better?
A little better. Keep working on it. It's good. I'm an old man. Okay.
No, it's not you. It's my microphone. I'm sorry.
No, it's me. Okay.
Okay. First of all, Professor, it's an honor to be talking to you right now. Thank you for being here with us. And the question is, how can we as teachers can create a balance between providing compelling content and ensuring that the input remains comprehensible for the learners in various proficiency levels, which I mean in a mixed abilities classroom.
Well, most of the reading children will do should be self-selected. It's what they decide. Teachers recommend, yes. Teachers suggest, teachers read aloud, talk about different books, but most of what they read, they select themselves. And if it doesn't drag them into the book, it's not right. We feel the same way about our reading. I don't like to read things that people just recommended. We all know this. And someone comes to you and says, you've got to read this book. This is wonderful. You must read it. This is exciting. The last thing you want to do is read it. It's called assigned reading. What we want is voluntary reading. And for this to happen, you need a big library, and you need students must have time to browse, to try a book out, see if they like it, even go back to it later if they want to give it another chance. The best reading is self-selection. It's the only reading that counts. Now, when my friends recommend a book to me, I do respect their opinion and their suggestions, and I may occasionally try it, but it's not a command. It's not like class. You have to like the book right from the start. My daughter sent me a book yesterday. Oh gosh, an author John Scalzi, I haven't read anything by him in years. It took me 3 pages and then I couldn't put it down. I wound up reading 60 pages just last night. So it's the recommendation that counts, but you don't have to follow it. It's up to you. Great question. Next question, please. That's a good one.
Maestra Guadalupe Hernández.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Krashen. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us. Many of us have read some of your books, have been delighted and have reflected a lot about your research and your writing. Most of my question was already answered by you on your last comment, but just I want to add, do you agree that nowadays we need like kind of reteach or teach our students to read again? Because many of them, especially very young students, children in elementary school and middle school, just want things very short, instantly, just like they get them on social media. And I would say I have noticed as an English teacher that we must guide, invite somehow our students to learn to read again, to learn to postpone all the gratification that they might get from the reading process, um, and enjoy the process itself. And many of them are not reading, are just spending their time on video games, on social media, on short messages, on what do we call them? Memes. And that's it. I guess these times are very um, important in a way that people must learn to read again and enjoy the process. What do you think? Thank
I
you.
really don't know. I don't think this has ever really been studied. Everybody says it, but I don't know if it's true. If you find reading that is instantly comprehensible and compelling, like a good comic book, you don't have that problem. Now I'm going to ask you to confess to one of your sins, okay? Are you ready? I'll bet when you pick up a comic book, you want to read it. They are so inviting. Same with me. I read better than 99% of people on earth, and still a comic book written at the second grade level can make me very exciting, because the best parts of the plot come in right away. That's what we want. And when someone recommends a book to me, I immediately don't want to read it. Okay. When someone assigns a book to me, no. So I would say the library is the answer. Lots and lots and lots of choices. There is no shame in putting something down, going back to it again later. So stay with that, see what happens. Next
Okay,
question. Very good
yes,
one.
the next question would be from Núñez Ramos Lorena, please.
Good morning, Professor Krashen. It's an honor to get to hear you live. It's the first time after studying so many of your theories. I was thinking when you were talking about learning and enjoying the language that is in comic books. In your experience, what has been a common process or a suggested process for students to go from acquiring this vocabulary or from learning the language by reading voluntarily and transforming this language that they have learned into conversation?
It happens by itself. You can't help it. Listen to the way I talk. I talk like a college professor. I use long sentences and big words. I can't help it. It's because I've done so much reading of this stuff. The same is true of you. Don't worry about transferring it to oral conversation. It happens all by itself. Reading has a powerful, positive influence. That's my opinion anyway.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Krashen, for a fantastic presentation. Your expertise and the ideas shared today have added great value to our discussions. We look forward to applying these insights in our own work.
Okay, I really hope the homework assignment that you have, if I can recommend assigned reading, I'm going to pass this to Jessica. Read Benico Mason's papers, at least one of them. I'll post them. And that was the foundation of what I talked about today. And what we all share in common is that there are a couple of magic principles. We want reading to be, number one, comprehensible. Number two, we want it to be compelling. So interesting that you can't put the book down. You want more. That's our goal. Great. Good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So now we're moving on to our next guest speaker, which is Professor Jessica Nava Martinez, who will present endorphins and language acquisition. Professor Jessica Nava Martinez is an English teacher, a graduate of LEI with 20 years of experience. She is recognized for implementing improvements and innovations in the field of English teaching. She has translated articles for Dr. Stephen Krashen and has been a speaker at national and international events. She is currently working online for Spain and Latin America. I give the floor to Professor Jessica. Professor Jessica?
Yes, do you all hear me? Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey. Okay, let me just get my things. I was just ready to go, okay? Just I got distracted a little bit. All right. Okay, so thank you. I'm so very excited and honored to be presenting right after my very good friend, mentor, academic mentor and academic guru, life coach. I can't, I just say how much I appreciate the moment, the space to also have a quick share of the work that I've done following Dr. Krashen's theories. And before starting with the topic, I always like sharing. I know Stephen has heard this many times before, but I like to share with everybody how I knew about Krashen's theories. And just like everybody at LEI, just like all my colleagues, classmates, teachers, we've all been there, right? We were there at some point. And before reading Dr. Krashen, I had read other academics or other very, very important people involved in language teaching, in teaching, in other fields that we are expected to cover and to know about in the major. Yes, but when I came across Dr. Krashen, it just hit me right in the heart, right in the heart. Obviously, we started reading in psycholinguistics some of his theories, his language, in general, language acquisition theories. But as time has gone by, and I've had a chance to receive papers like straight from Stephen, and being able to just browse on his website. He's got a blog. I don't know if all of you know, he's got a blog where you can find his books, you can find his articles, and he's constantly posting on Facebook. So he's a very active, as you all know, very active, up-to-date researcher. So I'm always curious, I'm always curious about what he's got to say next, what he's doing, and we share a lot of information. But going back to when I was a student in psycholinguistics class, I remember reading about the affective filter. And I said, it's just like everybody, I suppose. It happened to me, so I'm pretty sure it happened to everybody. I had really bad teachers throughout my academic life. In elementary, in middle school, high school. I have to be honest, even at LEI, I had really bad teachers. I always wondered, like, what's going on, right? Why would you teach if you're not happy, if you're not happy doing it, if you're not enjoying it, right? I mean, we all work, I guess, because we all need the money, we all need, but there are several other professions and occupations that you can carry out and be happy about, right? So I really consider that being happy as a teacher and keeping our students happy is a must for all those other acquisition theories to actually happen. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. But then going back again to when I was a student, I remember reading, I said, wow, this author, this person actually cares about me and about students, about our feelings, about how we feel. You know, I guess we're all very used to and familiar with arriving to our classroom and, you know, greeting our students like, oh, how are you? And the students very mechanically answering, oh, fine, thank you. And you? And that's it, right? And then we never really know how our students are feeling. And that's really important because it doesn't matter whether you're working with children, teenagers, adults, it doesn't matter the age, they're human beings. Yes, and you are a human being. We're on the same track, right? No robots, no aliens. Well, aliens are okay. They're nice. Okay, so when I read about him in psycholinguistics, it was halfway through the major. I didn't even have enough experience as a teacher to actually understand what all that was about, right? About lowering the affective filter, these other matters in a person's mind, heart, body that could block the learning process, the learning teaching process. Okay, so that was the moment. That was the moment I clicked with him. That was the moment I became super, super curious about his work. And well, I'm so very thankful because I've had the chance to not only meet him, have lunch with him, you know, I've had the chance to ask him so many things that have helped me become a better teacher. And I think I'm on this path every day. So just to start the presentation, I'd like to say that don't ever take anything for granted in the classroom. That kid, that teenager, that university student that could not be giving his or her best in class could be going through a very difficult time, just as we do as teachers, right? We also have problems. And this is something Stephen always says. He mentioned it last talk at Politecnico. How we all have problems, right? We all have problems. We have different problems, but we all have problems. We're all going through a tough time, especially in Mexico, right? So I wouldn't really talk about other countries, but at least I can talk for myself living in Mexico. So we all have problems, yeah? So I'm going to start with the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. And why did I choose this? Well, this topic is just something that one day I was just wondering about. I was wondering about me getting bored in class, my students getting bored. I've been academic coordinator for several schools, big names. And something that I've always told teachers as a coordinator, I've always told them.
I was going to 211 Thursday.
Okay.
It's okay.
Stephen. Thank you. Sorry, so sorry. It's fine. And I always told, I always told teachers working with me, have fun, you know, have your students laugh and have a good times. And a lot of times what I got in return as an answer was, I'm not a clown. I don't have to entertain my students. I was so confused at that moment, to be honest with you, because I said, okay, I understand that your personality may be different, you know. You might not be a joker in the class with students. You might be serious. You might be not exactly a teacher who's like fooling around in class, right? And that's fine. That's fine. But I will be talking about the happy hormone in class. Why should we feed our students with this hormone in class? Yes? Well, I'm going to tell you some reasons that you can see on the screen. These hormone endorphins relieve pain. Yes? So the affective filter could be blocked by a stomachache or a headache. You know, even you as a teacher, don't we have headaches all the time? You know, I think painkillers are mainly sold to teachers, right? we are Advil consumers. So, you know, also sometimes a bad test, a bad quiz may be a result of pain in the body. Yes, from like your students just being sick. I know you're also think like, oh, if they're sick, why do their parents send them to school? Okay, that has nothing to do with us. we didn't have the choice. We didn't have the word in our students being they're sick. We didn't have anything to do with it, so might as well help them pull through the class. Yeah, so that's one. Then we got another reason. Endorphins regulate the immune and inflammatory response in the body. Isn't that awesome? That just laughter, good vibes. Yeah, I'm known to be the hippie teacher, just if you guys were wondering. So I think it's very necessary. It's really nice when we can just have a laugh before starting our classes. Yes, before starting with this whole methodology, theory, procedures, have a laugh. Yes, just the way teachers, and I can include myself because I got my cup here. Just the way we do not go into the restroom, sorry, the classroom without our mug of coffee. Don't start the class without a good laugh. Yes, because endorphins can also reduce stress throughout your body. Oh, isn't that nice? Isn't that like magic? No, they're just chemicals in your brain. Yes, we should be as teachers, and it's a recommendation. Okay, I'm not saying must or oughta. We should. We should be the alchemist in the classroom. We should turn pain and emotions and all this negativity in our class into something that can promote learning in our students, okay? So if this is something that you can do with children, obviously children are a little more easygoing, right? Whatever you tell them, they'll laugh. I love working with children because I feel like I'm not teaching. I feel like I'm actually giving like a stand-up comedy presentation with children. They laugh at just about anything I say. So I feel like the funniest person in the world whenever I work with children. But I mean, teenagers, they laugh about just anything. So there's no risk there at all. All right. So how do we boost them? How do we but Jessica? Yeah, sure. Everything you're saying sounds pretty good. Easy said, I know. How do we boost endorphins in the classroom? Well, to share a good laugh with your friends and loved ones, just like you do at a reunion with your family, with your friends. Laughter is itself powerful medicine with the ability to reduce stress and increase your pain tolerance. Oh, goodness. So all the types of laughter, we got like what I just mentioned, no? Social laughter, a joke, or sometimes there's something I like mentioning a lot. You say, but I don't know any jokes. I'm not funny. I'm just like really serious. Let them do the job. We all have a class clown, right? We all, and those clowns, so sorry, all they want is attention, yes? So why not giving them a moment? So the thing we need to do is just like, sometimes we're just teaching and then students say something funny, right? And what usually happens, I'm not talking for everyone. I'm not talking about, this is something very common. Hopefully it doesn't happen anymore. But usually what does the teacher do? Be quiet. Don't be silly. Stop fooling around. Let them, obviously, without crossing the respect line or the limits, right? Always setting those limits to our students to have really good class management and, so and so. Anyway, so we can leave it up to them as well. It doesn't mean that we got to be laughing all throughout the class, right? That we're all, because that could be also something else. If we get something started and if it's really funny and then if it's really just fun in general, we'll get engaged, right? And then we'll keep going and just messing around with the students. And okay, if my whole class just happened with my students and myself laughing about something really dumb, well, I think it's worth it, right? I think it's worth it with all these reasons that I'm presenting. Okay, so I really like this quote. It says, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. Who disagrees? I'm not going to ask who agrees. Who disagrees? Okay, if you dare to disagree, well, what can I do, right? But I think even when you hear somebody laugh that has this very peculiar laughter, right? Like, or someone that laughs like a pig or something, because that's very common. I do that. I usually laugh like either a pig or a dog. And people just laugh at my laughter without any reason. Now, after a while, it gets annoying, but at the beginning, it kind of does the job. All right, so as I've been mentioning, as I've been talking about, laughter is the best medicine, yeah? But Jessica, what does this have to do? I mentioned at the beginning, right? I started talking about the affective filter. Well, related to what I started talking about on boosting endorphins and some of the benefits, well, you got some very specific benefits of laughing. Makes you look young. I'm actually 66, so I laugh a lot. Helps you lose weight. Of course, you also gotta eat a balanced diet and do exercise, don't expect just laughter help you lose weight on its own. Reduces heart diseases. Oh my goodness. So they're all really good reasons, right? To have a good laugh in the class. Sometimes, and this is reality, sometimes I think it's really tough and we don't tend to look at real things outside the classroom. No, it's sometimes just easier to say, oh, it's the administrator's fault. Oh, it's the parents' fault. It's everybody's fault except mine as a teacher. But it's okay. It's okay. It's fine. All right. So we got sometimes children, teenagers, adults, doesn't matter the age. Everything I'm presenting today goes well for all ages. And we sometimes have students that come from a very terrible situation at home. They come with all these luggage of emotions into the classroom. And I think if we can manage to control that or transform that, we are able to carry out and move through the activities and move through the speaking and move through all the abilities that we're supposed to be covering. We also have, so it's really important to take that into consideration, that Yes, of course, teachers also have a difficult life. Yes, teachers also suffer, but we are the teachers, yes? So if you're not able to move that aside, then reflect on it. No, I think it's really something nice to reflect on. So we got improves breathing. Also, your breathing, you got somebody in the classroom with allergies or just breathing or respiratory problems. Here you go. You're not going to cure them. Yes, you're not going to help it go away forever, but at least for a moment, you will help that condition get better. It strengthens your immune system, something that I just mentioned, gives a good sleep. Try laughing before going to sleep. It may take you longer to actually just drop dead, but you'll feel better. You'll feel better. You'll sleep really nice. You'll get up in the morning loving the world. Well, probably not, but you'll feel better. And then it combats depression. And this goes for all teachers, major teachers, high school teachers. Again, we're all going through things. We're all going to tough things. So if we help our students put that aside, like a coat, like your backpack, put it aside, or your coat or your jacket, hang your jacket. That's what we're going to do with their emotional and physical condition as much as possible. No, I'm not saying it's just magically going to happen. It would take me more than 30 minutes to go through many strategies, but we can come up with ideas. We can share them on social media. The idea is that, and this is something that I'm adding, that I just wondered about before the presentation. I think teaching could be a call, yes? Could be a call on your path, on your mission in life. We're not only teaching English, we're teaching culture, we're teaching communication, we're teaching ideas, we're teaching so many things other than a language system. So I think that if we find a way to make the best out of our classes, we can have better results. Just having them absorb what we want them to absorb. Yeah. All right. And on the second presentation, well, the second 30 minutes that I will be presenting, I'm going to continue on this, but it's going to be another of Krashen's theories that I also fell in love with, but I'll let you wait on that. Okay, so I love this picture. I think it's very like Stephen looks like an Avenger. I'm so sorry, an Avenger, right? Stephen, what do you think about the picture? It's pretty cool, right? Okay, so the affective variables act to impede or facilitate the delivery of input to the language acquisition device. According to my picture, Stephen said this, okay? Okay, so it's not that I just came up with. It's not just something that I was just being a hippie teacher and I said, okay, I think we need to laugh in class because I like laughing. But I got him here. So if you also, instead of asking me about this, you want to ask him with his permission, of course. I don't want to get him on the spot if he doesn't want to, but I'm pretty sure he does. I'm pretty sure he does. So anyway, the affective filter. There's something probably in the very early semesters of the major. You probably might not have heard about it yet, but you will eventually. So might as well get into the tone on it. So we got this blockage. Yes, we got this wall, anxiety, tension, stress. And then we got heaven. We got an open view. We got this door in front of us, which is self-confidence and motivation. If we got students motivated, of course, we don't have to be cheerleaders. Yes. We don't have to be overpraising our students all the time. Like, oh, you're so great just because your mommy thinks so. No. But at least we got to find ways. So I come back to everything I've been saying. You say, okay, I don't like overpraising my students because I don't feel it's right. I don't feel it's correct. It's fine, I guess, sometimes if we don't like our students too much, but that's not something that should get in the way, right? It should never ever be personal, but it's fine. We're humans and we can have those kind of feelings sometimes. But everything I'm sharing with you now, it's like a scientific, it's a scientific explanation, reason on why laughing with our students. If you don't want to go through the whole thing of giving them awards or praising them too much, because in the end, students can care less about those things. Those things really don't make any difference in their personal lives. You can give them a diploma, you can give them a chocolate. Well, probably a chocolate. I'll go for the chocolate momentaneously. Yes. But we are dealing with people. We are dealing with minds. We're dealing with hearts. We're dealing with souls. For as corny as this may sound, it's real. Yes. So just the way I think as teachers, we like to be treated nicely by our authorities and by our friends, by our family members. I guess students have the right to the same thing about us, right? Do you hear me well? Yes? Okay, awesome. All right. So anyway, I'll move on because then I think I got like 5 minutes. So I'm getting to the end, I promise. So filter. A filter, as I just mentioned, or a mental block can prevent L2 or L1, L3, L4, so on and so on, from getting in if a learner is anxious, afraid to take risks. That's mainly it. That's mainly it. Because what I've noticed in class is once my students are at ease, and I really never know if they like me for real. Yes, but at least I know they're cooperating, they're participating. Yeah. And we gotta create that environment. We gotta create that feeling of being probably not at home, but at least so they know they are in a safe place. Yes, that they're not being judged or even evaluated, even if they are, if they are. I mean, we know we have to do those administrative things and we got to show evidence of their progress, but the real progress is right there in class. If you got a student participating, if you got a student getting involved, not worrying about mistakes, because that's your job. No, if there's a mistake, we tend to pinpoint a lot. We tend to correct on the spot, or we correct later. It's our job to give feedback. That's something that it's there by all means. Yes, but we got to make them feel that it's okay to give it a try. Otherwise, how would they know if they're actually doing it correctly? Forget about correctness, just doing it and stepping on to their own inner language. Yes. So anyway, we gotta keep them relaxed with their feet up and with their cell phone in their hands. No, not like that. Not so relaxed. So anyway, low anxiety learning environment. We got the input. We got compelling input, hopefully interesting, lovable. Yes, input. But as you can see, input is the first thing. We're going to make sure it's being comprehensible. But even if we are using the most comprehensible language for our students at their level, we're doing on our side, we're doing everything perfectly. that we planned our classes. I got these visuals, I got this video, my class is gonna go just wow. And then we come to class to find out that no, nothing that we wrote on a format or in our notebook, it's actually happening. Yes. And this is why, because we got this huge wall blocking the whole process. And here we can see the other hypotheses, but none of that will get through if our students are not, and even you know, our students can sense a stressed teacher. Our students can sense a teacher that hates his or her job. No, so I'm not here to judge that part, right? We all have the jobs we want that we can have at the moment, and just myself yesterday I quit my job because of this. So anyway, this is the importance of laughing in the class. Yes, what teacher behaviors help to create is a low anxiety learning process. Sometimes just a high five with the students, it's a connection. Okay, so try to have this connection, because I'm pretty sure at different courses that you take in like as a teacher, training courses, we usually see these. I don't remember the name of this educator, American educator. I don't remember her name, but I've seen her like so many times talking about students don't learn from people they don't like. So if anybody remembers the name, I've seen this video like 100 times. I think it's a TED Talk. And we are showing this video like every time we have a training, and I love it. I like it because I also don't learn from like from people I don't like. Yes, just the information doesn't get through. So let students snicker. You know, sometimes we think it's about us, but forget it. It's not about us. They don't care about us. Yeah, they don't care about us in what sense? They may love us. They may be very happy with us at that moment, but they'll move on and they'll have other teachers. So don't take anything personal from students, especially if they're adolescents. They're just crazy. Yes. So let students snicker at the funny things. Laugh at yourself. Also, teachers, we make mistakes. It's fine. Laugh with them. Be less tense when they burst into laughter at the mistakes they make or the silliness of the new viral TikTok video you used to teach content. And this is Keisha Edwards from We Are Teachers sharing this information. And yeah, I made it right on time. I'm done. Thank you so much. Oh goodness,
Okay.
I'm trying to stop sharing. Yeah,
Yeah.
there.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to Professor Jessica for sharing with us all this important topic for those who are dedicated to the work of teaching languages and having allowed us to update our knowledge regarding this topic. Now, moving on, we are glad to receive Dr. Stephen Krashen once again, who will present new directions in acquisition and learning. It is a pleasure to count with your presence once again, Doctor. Right. Your microphone is off. Yes.
Well, it's okay now. Okay. I have some new ideas that are hypotheses. I don't know if they're true or not, but if I were going to do more research, I would look at these. This has happened to me and has happened to you. Okay. I was in a shop in Santa Monica, and I went in to buy something, and the lady behind the desk was a German speaker, and she had a very thick German accent. Now, German is the second language I know best, so I spoke German to her. Now, I realized when I said it that I had not spoken German probably in 30 years, but it just came out. And she said to me, how long, she said this in German, how long have you been here? She thought I was a native speaker. This has happened to me in different ways several times, and I've noticed that there is a similarity. It's happened to me with French. It's happened to me with German. It hasn't yet happened to me with Spanish. Vamos a ver, maybe someday I will. And here's the universal. It happens to me in a language not that I've studied, but a language that I have picked up, acquired from friends, that I've picked up and done the natural way. With German, I did a lot of German when I was in Austria. I came there to study music, and I wound up having a much better time paying attention to German. I had a good time there. I had a wonderful time. I had lots of friends who liked me. We spoke German together. They recommended good books, and it was very good. The same thing happened to me with French. A lot of people around who spoke French with me and made sure I understood what they were saying. My hypothesis today then is, doesn't have to be right, just has to be interesting. We acquire language best when we pick it up, when we acquire them, not when we study them. That's my latest idea, my latest hypothesis. If it turns out to be wrong, that's okay with me. We will have made some progress. I don't have any other new ideas to share with you. I thought I'd see if I'd get some feedback with this idea. Your turn to talk back.
Yes, we have Professor Andrea.
Hello, Professor. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My teacher, well, I'm teacher Aurea. I'm teaching here at LEI in Fesajatlan. I teach actually different subjects where I take you as reference. I'm really pleased to be with you here today. Well, yeah, something that you were mentioning now about this part of acquisition, which is something
Stuck.
that I try to, after I linguistics, apply linguistics, I love these subjects.
Excuse me.
Sorry. Then I started to explore with my students, go beyond this learning of structures and think beyond and think outside the box, because I always go through this. I'm happy to say that 6 generations of students that are thinking beyond what is a structure of the grammar or memorizing vocabulary, which is pointless. We want the students to experience the language as it is, acquisition, no? So change that learning towards acquisition makes it harder. I wanted to tell you that, well, in my case, for example, has also been a journey. I like learning other languages. I'm currently studying Turkish. And yeah, I know, right? And definitely doing these techniques of pick up books or short stories that are in Turkish and probably even working on it first to figure out the grammar behind it, because Turkish has a very unique way to go through its own grammar. But now I feel more confident to go through some readings, and I've been in touch with friends, making friends from Turkey, which is amazing. And I'm encouraging my students to go further, like stop thinking about present perfect or that idea. I wanted to thank you because I'm working with my students towards that. I hope they can continue with that part. But yes, that's pretty much what I wanted to tell you.
Let me add something to your hypothesis. Input is where you get the new language, not by studying it, of course.
Yeah.
And when a story is interesting, a conversation is interesting, you are acquiring, whether you like it or not. So
I love it.
You need good friends. I'd like to read some more joke books in all the languages that I like. Okay. And if nobody else does it, I'll probably do it myself. Easy joke books, things you can read and have a good time. That's how you get it. And there, your focus is on the message 100%. So if someone can go out and make some money with that, I would like that very much. We need joke books in other languages. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I something that I always tell my friends, because I learn Italian, I learn other languages, I've tried them, and it's like I can laugh in so many languages because now you're understanding other things that are not even explicit within grammar or vocabulary, so you go beyond it. So yes, it's amazing. Yes, I agree with you. We should do some more studying or publishing joke books to work on that.
No pedagogical books
No.
are humorous. They're all boring, every single one. So we really should start out with a joke book.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. Thank you so much, Professor. Nice meeting.
Okay. Good idea.
Okay, we are waiting if someone else wants to participate. So yes, we have Padierna Porras Luis. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Hello, it's an honor to meet you, Professor. Well, I just wanted to ask from the previous presentation, if you, I know that you're retired, but if you were not retired, would you include any activity to, well, related to the self-selected reading in class? Because, well, it seems that most of this work is done outside the classroom, right?
That's true. That's true. That's a very, very good question. It's very hard to find stuff that's interesting and comprehensible unless it's in some book somewhere, which is what that is my primary source. I wouldn't call that studying, okay? That's not part of my retirement, okay? If I find a book for pleasure, I will read it in any language that's interest, where it has an interesting message, and that will help acquisition. Great question.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else wants to participate? We're going to check if someone in Facebook wants to ask or say something. So let's give it a couple of minutes. Yes, we have teacher Maria del Consuelo. Please go ahead.
Yes, I would like to ask, what about audiobooks? Do you think they can help or enhance the reading experience, or they might be a separate way of learning a language?
I think both. I think they could work very well. And your comment is wonderful because there aren't any. Nobody I know has come out with a good audio book, let's say in intermediate French. I would buy a copy right away. Okay. And it's great. Go for a walk, listen to some good stories. You don't like it, or a good joke book, good stories, audio, very good idea. Go do it, make a lot of money, and we'll all help make you rich.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Anyone else wants to ask something? Participate or engage in a conversation with Dr. Krashen? Yes, we have teacher Ismael Centeno Leos.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Krashen. Thank you for your presentation. And my question is, could there be some guidance that teachers can provide to students for a pleasurable reading? Because you're saying that, well, we can give them some material to read or encourage them to read something they like, and the classroom shouldn't be that academic. But could there be some guidance? And if so, what kind of guidance could a teacher give the students to enhance their reading experience?
Well, I just had an idea for a change, okay? What we need to do is write reviews of good books and publish them. Here's a book at the intermediate level. It's all about fishing and it's hilarious. That kind of thing. That would be useful for me in the language I want to get better at. The main method I use to improve in my other languages is, of course, reading input. If I could add audio as well, and if I could get recommendations from other people, that would be a tremendous help. So thanks for your suggestions. Good ideas.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Krashen, would you like to add something else that maybe you just came up with, or something you feel like you need to talk to us about?
Oh my goodness, that's the hardest question I can imagine getting, that one. Wow. Uh, hmm. I'll give you a little story what happened to me. I am what we call a language lover. If I hear another language, I want it. I want to acquire it, or at least some of it. And most of you are like that too. And I'll tell you a story in answering this question when it all happened. And I owe this insight to the Persian philosopher Rumi, Rumi. And Rumi's statement was, for everyone, there's something that they are designed to do in their life. And they're not happy till they discover what it is. Once they start doing it, they're happy. When I was in my 20s, my mother had a very good idea. Mom always had wonderful ideas. She said, Stephen, there's this organization I just read about called the Youth Hostel Group. And what you can do is you can join their group, get on one of their trips, and you'll travel around different countries and stop in different places and be exposed to different languages and cultures. Why don't you do that? Your father and I will pay for it. Okay. So I did that right away. I joined a group that was about with 10 other people my age, all of them very, very friendly people. And we went on a trip through part of Great Britain and through part of the Benelux countries. And we wound up in Germany. And we stopped at youth hostels, places where students can come and stay overnight, and it's inexpensive. And we're at a youth hostel, and I was sitting at a table, and most of the people at the table spoke German. It was in Germany. And someone joined us, and he spoke English to me, German to the others, and French to some other people, pretty good. And I thought to myself, that is great. I'd never thought about languages before. I thought, I want to do that. The next day, I was on a trip to Paris and enrolled in a language school. And it's been language after language ever since, and it hasn't worn off. Rumi was right. Find in life what your major goal is, what makes you the happiest. And the world needs you. We can't all do the same thing. We need all kinds of different talents and abilities. Find the thing you like the best, do it. You will help humanity and you'll have a good time. That's what I would do next. I'm always looking for the next language.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have teacher Andrea once again. So please.
Sorry for interrupting, but just what you have said is exactly how I feel about languages, which is like, I hear it, I want it. That's all I can think of. I wanted to ask you, would you say that a superpower that you would like to have would be to switch languages at will?
Yes, of course. That's what I'm aiming for. Whenever I can do that, I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It was a famous writer, Gloria Allred, who wrote this, who was a feminist writer. She said this wonderful thing about writing. She said, when I'm writing, I don't feel I should be doing something else. She's got it. When I'm, for example, reading a book in French, I don't feel I should be doing something else. I feel that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And the human race needs people with different interests and different abilities. The human race has many, many problems, and we need all of us in our special interests to solve them. That has really helped me. And I guess we're on the same road. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Eric Vivero, please.
Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Stephen, I know that this is probably unusual for us, but as long as I know, there are many languages in the world that don't have a writing system. Maybe I am not going to meet any person who has that language or who speaks in that language. But I would like to ask you, for example, if you faced one person who has never written or read anything because he or she speaks in a language that doesn't even have that system, that writing system, how would you encourage that person to read?
It's tough. You need to find books that are comprehensible, and you won't find them in that situation. It's going to be really hard. You need a friend to write a few easy things for you, I think. Maybe that's the only way. I've never been in that situation. It's a very challenging question. All the languages I've been interested in have written systems, every single one. So, good question. I might run into that. I'll know what to do then. I'll find someone and get them to dictate some sentences, see what happens. Okay, algo más.
Yeah, so we're waiting if someone wants to participate, comment something. We're also waiting on Facebook, but so far, no one has said anything.
Well, let me tell you about my latest language and how that all began. It happened in Santa Monica, where I live. And I went into a store to do some business, and the store owner had his name on his hat. Okay, it was Jose. So I figured he was a Spanish speaker. At the time, my Spanish was absolutely minimum. But of course, I spoke Spanish to him. And he told me he could not answer in Spanish. The owner of his store has instructed all employees to speak only English to all customers. So of course I continued in Spanish, and I made sure that I got better in Spanish. What I did is I bought lots and lots of very easy books in Spanish, pedagogical books, grammar books. It didn't matter as long as they had passages that were simple. And I spent the next month reading every day, reading something in easy Spanish. Now, when I go in there, I only speak Spanish to everybody who works there, and I am now a hero of the story. People come up to me and speak Spanish. They think it's absolutely wonderful. So you never know. That's been my latest adventure, picking on a language that I thought would be unpopular, but I helped make it a little bit more popular. By the way, my Spanish is not very good, but I'm working on it. Yo puedo hablar un poquito español. Vamos a ver, okay?
Okay, so Dr. Krashen, so far by learning Spanish, have you found like a certain word you find interesting or a quote, maybe?
I'll keep track. That's a good question. I probably haven't thought about it or haven't written it down, but I'm going to keep a special notebook for that from now on. The phrases that I find especially interesting or especially charming, okay, that I really want to use, that I think are different and fascinating. That's a very, very good suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have word that we have a question in Facebook. So let me ask you from their part. So the question is, how would you recommend to provide input to students in a classroom?
Tell stories.
Okay.
No kidding. Tell stories. Go around the room, have students introduce who they are, etc. But basically, it's telling stories and, of course, telling jokes, the joke of the day, etc. That's what I would do. And the next time I'm in a position to teach languages, I'm going to do that. Excuse me for a moment.
We're going to go run water in the shower because we have our leak downstairs. We want to find out if it's not coming from here.
That will cost you. I'll send you a bill. Okay.
Oh, my wallet doesn't have any money.
All right, go ahead for it. Go get it. Okay. They're repairing the shower. Okay. Okay, where were we?
Provide input to students in a classroom, right? We were on that question.
Yeah, I would have.
Jokes.
Yeah, I would have the joke of the day. I would begin classes with a joke. I would invite students to bring in their jokes in their favorite second language. etc. There are lots of jokes that I would use in doing that, and you can think of at least 10 of them that are your favorite, and you'll be teaching language at the same time. Jokes, jokes, jokes. Okay, Jessica's right. That's one of the great universals.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question. Do you think that languages are shrinking?
Strengthening thing? No. I'll tell you what I think, and it's kind of depressing. Okay, the weight things are going now, in another 100 years, it's going to be only English everywhere. I can see this happening absolutely everywhere. I've had circumstances in my family and friends. Okay, a good friend of mine, her kids go to school, they get kindergarten only in English. Her grandchildren will only speak English to her, and the language that the family language is not used anymore. Myself, I went to Israel over the summer a couple of years ago to visit family, and I had just finished an intensive course in Hebrew about a month on a kibbutz, and I felt pretty good. I was doing great in Hebrew. My relatives would only speak English to me. They all spoke English like Netanyahu beautifully. Okay, so I see that languages are dying everywhere. But don't worry, it's going to be about 100 years till they're all gone. They'll all stick around for a while. I think the future of multilingualism is not very bright. The world is getting smaller and smaller, and a few languages are taking up more and more of the burden. That's a prediction. It's not something I approve of.
Oh, okay. Well, what a great idea, but quite the realistic one, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, changing it to a more optimistic question, someone asked, what is your favorite book in Spanish and in English?
My favorite book is always the one I'm reading now, and I hate to be silly about this, but it's really difficult. I got a book by John Scalzi the other day. It's in English, and my daughter gave it to me, and of course, since she selected it, it was absolutely perfect. So right now, he's my favorite author, and that's an English book. I just take whatever one is there. It doesn't matter. It's difficult if you live in the United States to find good books in languages other than English, and I'm always looking for them. Let me tell you. Good question. It reveals a real gap. So thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, and I think we have time for one last question. So if you let me read it. Do you think as human beings, we need to have a new Esperanto? Is English the option?
I think you're right. I think English is the new Esperanto, and that won't be forever. Because eventually it's going to be all English, just one language. That's my prediction, and I won't live long enough to see if that's true. But I think that's what's happening. Wherever I go, it's more and more English, more and more the dominance of one language. English is winning everywhere. When I was a teacher in Ethiopia, and this was about 50 years ago, I met the emperor, Haile Selassie, and I had a chance to talk to him. I practiced my Amharic for a whole month. When I got to meet Haile Selassie, I spoke to him in Amharic. Guess what? He answered in English. There you go. It happens everywhere. It's going to be the only one left, and it's going to be English everywhere. That's my prediction. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I think that's how things are going.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Krashen, for sharing your knowledge and experiences with us. The points you raised throughout this whole second speech from your part were particularly impactful, and more the whole idea that English is going to become like our overlord, if I have to say it. And we are grateful for your contribution to today's session.
Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, by the way, I particularly enjoyed Jessica's talk because her son and I are quite good friends. I thought I'd pass that on. Okay. Thanks to all of you. Had a good time today.
Thank you very much, and we hope to see you in the next annual conference.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Now, we are also glad to receive Professor Jessica Nava Martinez for the second time.
Wow.
Who will present The Dean in the Head. Love is in the Air. For those who were not with us some moments ago, Professor Jessica Nava Martinez is an English teacher, a graduate of LEI with 20 years of experience. She is recognized for implementing improvements and innovations in the field of English teaching. She has translated articles for Dr. Stephen Krashen and has been a speaker at national and international events. She's currently working online for Spain and Latin America. It is a pleasure to count with your presence once again, Professor Jessica.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. I'm almost done, okay? I'm almost done. So it's like, oh, there she goes again. Yeah, okay. So well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Stephen, because I think this is like the first time I've heard your comments publicly, because I know how you
tell
feel.
Cesar hello for me, okay?
Oh, definitely. He knows. He's watching over there. He was on the window.
Okay, good.
He says hello. Always. He's always asking about you. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start. So I'm going to connect. I think my intention today was connecting everything we've been talking about. And after years of teaching and reflecting on myself, on my work, because I think this is something we all should do. It's like loving yourself. It's self-esteem. You know, it's overcoming that ego that sometimes doesn't let us open our mind to new things. No, so we sometimes stick to something because either this is how the school I work for tells me to, or this is how I learned with my so-and-so teacher at school. Something I'd like to point out as a lay teacher, from UNAM, is that I had great teachers. When I started bugging Stephen, I remember I wrote like 1 million messenger messages. Sorry for that. And I said, I was given a chance to present at the first, I think it was the first Applied Linguistics Colloquium at UNAM,
right,
many years ago. And I was just sitting there like, whoa, here's the chance, here's the opportunity. I've got to speak up on what I think about my own work and the work I've noticed around. And I was so nervous because I thought to myself, like, what am I going to say? What do I actually have to say? So I thought to myself, honestly, at that moment, I didn't have a teacher I could go to because I think my teachers had already answered like all my questions by then. No, I was already out in the real world, going through all these deception of teaching. And I said, well, the only person I could really ask about all these doubts that I've got could be my hero, my academic hero. And that was Stephen. He finally answered after 1 million messages. He said, okay, what do you want? What do you want? I said, oh, well, you know, I'm doing this. And he's like, okay, email, send me your work. And I was very excited. I don't know if he remembers that, but of course I do. And I remember writing to him like, I want to talk about this in this presentation. He said, forget it. No. Like, well, of course, he wouldn't say something like throw it away, but something very similar to that. And I said, oh, okay, well, what do you suggest? And then he made some suggestions, and I'm not going to go through the presentation I gave back then. That was like, goodness, like 9 years ago. Cesar was my son. He was a year old. He's now 11. So just imagine quite some years back. And I even remember presenting that at that time and mentioning, now, Dr. Krashen helped me, and everybody were looking at me like, sure, of course he did, right? Well, he did. Anyway, I'm not trying to prove anything at the moment. What I'm trying to say is that everything I work under and that I have actually been able to put into practice has come from Dr. Krashen. And it's been my success as a teacher. So I'm not going around just saying things, like, oh, people say this is good. No, Krashen says, and I've got a lot of evidence. Again, I've only got 30 minutes, so I cannot present any statistics today, and eventually, hopefully, I will in the near future. But I want to connect everything we've been talking about, my first presentation, everything Dr. Krashen has been telling us, with one of his hypotheses that just blew my mind. And this is, we've talked about this before. I've asked you questions about this, Stephen, but this is the first time you see this presentation. So hopefully you, just like everyone else, likes it. All right, so I came up with this title. I was just going through, like, I just don't want to, like, I don't want to give it the name itself, because the name itself is just good enough. But I want to put like my I don't know, my feeling on this. Let me see. I don't want to show this as a full screen presentation because I always go crazy on it on Zoom. But the din in the head, love is in the air. Okay. So yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is this?
That's
What is
right.
the din? You like it, Stephen? Love is in
It's
the air?
infatuation. Yes, of course.
Exactly. That's where I'll be going to in a sec. All right. So the din in the head, first noted by archaeologist and linguist Barber in 1980, is an involuntary in the subconscious mental rehearsal of a language that occurs after we had extensive comprehensible input in that language. And yes, Stephen, I stole this directly from your from your abstract on your website. So
Good.
I wanted to put it there, like just literally as you wrote it. And what is this? Okay, so after I've designed my comprehensible input, and I've overcome this wall of emotions and illness and depression and all these things that will block this comprehensible but compelling. I really loved that when I heard that the first time from Stephen. He mentioned the word compelling. Because we're always trying to do like interesting things, from our perspective. As Stephen has said also many times, only grammaticians care about grammar, right? You've said this many times before, Stephen. And I do believe so. Sometimes students are like, like, I don't care about grammar. We know grammar is necessary. I'm not going to discuss that, and I'm not going to go over that at this moment. But once we think we've already planned a really interesting and compelling and beautiful class, again, we have to go through that wall of bringing down that wall of emotions and etc. We got to make sure it sticks. It sticks to our students' head, to our students' cognition, cognitive structure, mind, wherever that goes. Yes, but we wanted to stick there. As you all know, most of the popular songs in history, pop songs, Beatles, my favorite time in history, rock and roll, but in a pop melody, I would say, all of these songs, jingles, for example, no? Sometimes, have you ever found yourself singing a jingle that you're thinking like, why am I singing that? Or it's not really your favorite song in the world, but you catch yourself singing a very good jingle. Well, all those people are people who know how sonnets work. Yes, so most of popular pop songs are written with a sonnet structure, but also I'm not going to go through that at the moment. But what does this do? I'm pretty sure most of you, when having a literature class or either teaching it or being the student, you probably read a poem, right? That stuck to your head. That stuck to your head and said, oh my goodness, that poem I felt something beautiful. And then you find yourself again either going over the poem in your head. But there was a connection, no? There was a connection at some point that led you to keep thinking about it. Or, as Dr. Krashen, and this is the reason why I call it love is in the air, we go through a process called infatuation, or we go to a state of chemicals, and yes, we got some endorphins there too, and dopamine, and falling in love is something very similar to, falling in love at a chemical stage, yes? Like this first stage in which we can't stop thinking about the person. Has that ever happened? Okay, I can't see hands right now, but okay, Stephen raised his hand. Who has fallen in love? I think I have. I don't know. But you can't stop thinking about that person, right? You're constantly thinking about that person, like, oh my God, like, why is this person in my head? Well, because you liked it. Sometimes it's even just the fact of this person being new to your life. No? So I think mainly that's sometimes the reason that you are in this infatuation state, because you're receiving something new, something that's taking you out of your routines, taking you out of these mechanical living. So when you get hit by something like that, you remember it, and it goes to your long-term memory. And that's what we want, right? We want acquisition to get done, to happen, and it can happen in this state of infatuation. I really like the idea, and this is something I thought, it was like a epiphany this morning that I had on how we teachers can be alchemists of emotions. We can be alchemists of a mental information process in the classroom. And this is this is a state in which you would want your students to be when you are presenting something. Yes, when you are presenting your input. Yes, you want to get them into this. Yes, we're laughing, ha ha ha. Once they're laughing, they're yours. Yes, try making somebody laugh and then asking them for money. It's very, very possible that they'll lend you some money.
Interesting. Yeah.
Not that I've done this before. Like, no, brothers, I've never done this. Okay. So, anyway, you want to get them into this state of being in love with your class. Yes. I come back to what I was mentioning earlier. It's not like, I think I once fell in love with a teacher at school, like the university in the major. But it's not about that. It's not about making your students fall in love with you because you're good looking or you're being charismatic. It could help, but input will be the one or the thing in charge of getting your students into this infatuation state. Okay, so this din in the head is just this constant, as I said, right? This constant repetition, this constant reminder that you liked whatever is moving inside your head so much. Okay, so we got the concept through in 1984. And I think I got this 83. I'm so sorry. As I mentioned, Elizabeth Barber introduced the idea of din in the head into the professional literature. Yes, I'm going to fix this because it looks pretty bad. Okay, and Krashen in 1983 speculated that this din in the head might be a sign. Oh goodness, what happened? I apologize. That this was a sign that language was taking place, that it was a result of the operation of the language acquisition device, right? Everything we've been talking about. So again, no, we come to the same question once again and again. How do I do this? Yeah, how do I do this? Well, I'd like to relate this a little bit. A lot of people nowadays in education have been saying that learning styles are not trendy anymore, but it's a reality. We learn through our senses. Yes, we experience this 3D human life through our senses. Yes, that my father said that there are more, but at least in the physical world, in this 3D world that we live in, we do it through our senses. Yes. So regardless of people nowadays in education saying that learning styles are not in and they're out, and we got to consider them when presenting input. Yes. We are presenting input through reading. We are presenting input through listening. We are presenting input through our own speech in class. So before we actually want our students to start talking, we got to feed them, right? Like there is this song from, it's one of my favorite bands, but I forgot right now. Jefferson Airplane, American psychedelic band from the 60s, that says, feed your head, right? Feed your head, White Rabbit, the White Rabbit song. It says, feed your head. You got to feed your head. You got to feed your head with ideas. Exactly what Dr. Krashen was talking about. I really loved it, what you just mentioned before answering to a question on how you're going to have a notebook to write down expressions that you really like. Well, I totally related this with the DINs, because I've noticed also in class, whenever I do like a gesture with a really cool expression, students that are, okay, I want that expression. I want to try that out. But it goes along with the gesture and the body language. And it's like making a really good impression in your students, no? Like making a really good impression of the topic. Yes, the topic, and I mean that topic because I mean we do got to go through these. How can I say, these curriculum? No, we got to follow a curriculum. We got to follow a program when we're teaching. But in the end, we are in charge of the performance. Yes, we are in charge of the performance, and this is why I don't know how many of you ladies took drama class. I don't remember what semester drama class is given now. I think it was an optional class back then when I was a student. And I was like, why do I have to study drama? Like, what does this have to do with teaching, right? I loved it. I have to say, I loved it. One of my favorite. Thanks to that, I'm a great performer also. Stephen knows I also sing and I have a band with my family, and drama class helped me a lot for teaching because I do like a whole show, not only showing them flashcards or showing them pictures that can help them understand or helping the input become a little more comprehensible, but I also dance and I also move. And I go back to what I said at the beginning, right? It's not something that it has to be done. I'm not saying that this is the way. This just, well, something that can help, right? And I can tell you that it does help a lot. Students love it. Students love it when you are presenting these new things. Now, just imagine, just imagine. I think we've all heard this from our students, like, oh, no, verb to be again? Come on. It's like, I already have a PhD on verb to be. Like, and they ask you, no? They even cry about it, like, oh no. Like, yeah, but how else can I present new information, new vocabulary using the verb to be? And they'll know that even though they've gone through that topic or that grammatical structure several times, finding something new this new time with you will make them be motivated and knowing that there's always something new to learn. No? Okay, so we got the melody din, as I just mentioned. No, we got these jingles, pop songs. Again, they're written in sonnet reason, so it sticks to your head, so it gets there, so it's catchy. Yes, so what it means is that a song is catchy. So with children, we know that in early stages of language acquisition, in language early development, children development, we present a lot of songs, right? That's how we do it, because they don't know how to read and they don't understand grammar. So how else could we present some language? Well, through songs, right? This is something, and not only as a second language, we also do this with their native language. When children are learning to speak, we give them songs, no? So they start having this connection with the body and their ideas and language and so and so. So if we do it, there are several processes in language development in children that can be used in adults. Not all of them though, because this is something I've always said. There are schools, like very recognized schools all over, at least in Mexico, I've seen so many slogans saying, we teach you English just the way you learned Spanish. Impossible, especially if you're an adult. I mean, in my case, like, I don't know, somebody who's 35, let's say, it cannot at all learn English as if they were a child, because they're adults. They've been speaking Spanish for like 36, 37 years. So Spanish is very strong in their head. So there's no way you can follow the same methodology with a child than with an adult. But that's another presentation, that's another topic. But what I mean is that you can also use, and it's like a comparison, no, of different types of dins. It doesn't mean that you got to use songs all the time, but it's just an option, and it's a way of showing how these
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, bye.
so it's a way of showing how these dins are produced and how they work in your head. So as I mentioned, we got the melody din, the catchy song that will stick to your head all day through. And in some cases, if you're musicians, these songs will help you produce or write or compose songs. Yes, so it's not, in the end, we're dealing with the language. Then we got the kinesthetic din, movement. Yes, if you got your students, you got children, you got teenagers love this. You may think sometimes that teenagers don't like moving around and you know, doing this brain gym activities, but they do. They love it. They love whatever you can do to have them stand from that seat they're spending 8 hours on can help catch their attention at least. Okay, so if you mix a very catchy expression that maybe that day the student, and we're going to connect this with the affective filter, maybe that day the student really needed that expression or that thought, no, to make them like, oh, okay, that's nice, that got to me. And then you mix it with movement. No, I always like my students, what they always say is, like, in my case, as you can see and you have already noticed, I love moving my hands, and I'm sitting down, but when I'm in front of a class, I'm walking around and I'm doing a lot of gestures, and my body language tries to go with my speech. So they'll even remember how you moved your hand. Yes, if you bent down for an expression. So, and if you make them do it, they're integrating this to their own experience. Yes, so they're experiencing the language with their whole body. Then we got the reading din. For this, I don't have, I'm trying to go as fast as possible, but I think it's okay. I'd like to share a story that I presented probably before the pandemic. Stephen has heard about this many times before. When I was almost a teenager, when I was a child, I was in elementary school. I used to live in Texas, and I was not fully bilingual by 10 or 11. I became fully bilingual by 12, or at least I think, right? Yeah, just give me some time on this. And what I was really eager to start talking to my classmates. I hung around a lot of native speakers because of music, and so, but I was really curious, I was really curious. My teachers were not bilingual. So I had a challenge there. I had a big challenge there. So I said, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? My teachers are not doing much for me. I live in a language speaking country. Mostly everybody around me speaks English. So what am I going to do about this? So there was this day, just this particular day, I still remember. I'm 42, so imagine just how many years ago. I went to the library, beautiful library. I think the most beautiful library I've ever visited in my life. It was my elementary school library in Dallas, Texas. I was just going through the books. We went to our library once a week, and every week we took a book. I don't know, but I think this is not done anymore. And never mind Mexico. Mexico's schools don't even have libraries. I know of just a few schools, but no interesting books. Anyway, I started picking out books, and I noticed like some of them were not either interesting too much, or they were not at my level. I couldn't understand much. So I just started taking books, and I started reading, and I started listening to these words like around. I started looking for words. And then one day, the Scholastic, so sorry for saying names, but and I promise they're not paying me. Scholastic had a book fair every month at my school. So I became so very interested. Now it was different because now I had the choice of buying. They were not for free. I had to buy them. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. I started reading R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. They were my favorite books. It was not like until like 6 months after I started, and I think I read the whole collection at the time. I would buy a book or two or three. I would even ask my younger brothers. They didn't like reading. They were like doing something else. They were younger. I would ask them like, oh, mommy gave you money for the book fair. Could you buy this book for me? So I'll end up having 3 or 4 Goosebumps and different books from the book fair because of my brothers. They would buy the books for me. And then after a year, I didn't hang around with anybody who spoke Spanish. Not that to be meant, it was not something bad, right? But I really encouraged myself. I pushed myself to doing this. And I realized that it was the fact that I loved the books. I loved the books. And the words in those books were new. They took me into this infatuation state where I went the next day to my native speaker friends, and I would just put my word into practice. Let's just say really fancy word for a 6th grader at the moment. And them being native speakers, I would tell like, where did you get that word from? What does it even mean? That's when I started falling in love with the process of knowing new words. But I was not learning these words in an ESL class. I was doing it through reading. And I did something similar a few years ago before the pandemic for a school I used to work at. I created this library for my classroom. I bought all sorts of books. I bought Harry Potter. I bought The Hunger Games. I bought like 200 books. And I said, okay, guys, you can pick a book. If you don't like it, put it back. Just don't take them home. I did actually borrow them. They never came back, but well, given a book as a present without my permission, I think it was nice. I enjoyed it. Well, anyway, where am I going with this? They fell in love with just being able to choose. Just the fact of choosing something new for them became something encouraging to have them get going on these self-selected reading. Anyway, all my students, more than 100 students that year, passed the FCE Cambridge exam, middle schoolers, just because of this reading. Yes, so I didn't bring any statistics with me today, but this is just an example of how you gotta make them fall in love with the input they're receiving. And it's not only through you giving grammar, it's through these different things that you can, I think I'm almost done. I'm going. So anyway, this was the reading. I gave all of these that I just mentioned was not even prepared. This was not taken into consideration, but I really wanted to mention it because of the reading din. Okay, you got the reading din, but it has to be through self-selected reading, not through those books, super expensive books. I know as a mother, I know Cesar has thrown those books at my face. Those books that publishers sell schools just for business. Yes, just for business. I've paid a lot of money for those books, and trust me, my son was not interested at all. Okay, so careful with those book packages, publishers. I apologize for that extra commercial. But and then we got visual din, of course, through visuals. This is something you can also do, pictures, flashcards, and the intellectual din. I relate the intellectual din a lot with critical thinking. Yes, like bringing out these muse, this epiphany into our students to create something new, not just to get the fire going. And I think I gotta rush up. So all of these that I just told you takes us to the ecstasy hypothesis. When I read this title, I was like, what? I mean, we can create ecstasy in our students' brain with just playing around with those hormones, with those chemicals. And as I said, we are the alchemist in the classroom. And I think I gotta shut up because it's already time. I'm done. And the rest is homework for everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Jessica, for that insightful presentation. We truly appreciate the time and effort you've put into sharing this valuable information with us today. We hope you keep contributing more to the field of English teaching in the years to come, and to find more hypotheses as interesting as the last one.
He has a lot. He has a lot. So just go and find them. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised that what we are taught in the major, it's supposed to, and I think it's fine, and I think it's okay, and I think it's education's mission to only show us the way. Yes, it's our job. It's our work to keep looking, to keep finding new things. And we are very lucky because we got Dr. Stephen Krashen to help us through that process.
Indeed. So, well, it has been an enormous privilege to be here with all of you, but now it's time we take a break. So remember that we will be back at 3 p.m. Stay tuned for the next session of this day so that you won't lose the rest of this experience. See you soon.